Antarctica is the world's least explored and one of the most mysterious places on Earth. A land of extremes. 5.4 million square miles of frozen desert, home to the driest place on Earth. No native people, animals, or even a single tree. Antarctica almost seems like it is another world. A land of exquisite beauty, yet a desolate, barren landscape. Inhospitable to permanent human settlement. Antarctica is quite an enigma. While the North Pole sits on top of a frozen ocean, the South Pole is located on an actual landmass that is covered with ice. Unless the ice melts, no one may know exactly what is under the surface. Miles of ice has piled up over the millennia, with temperatures that never rise above -12 degrees Celsius, or 9 degrees Fahrenheit. Barely anything can survive here. But despite the harshest conditions on Earth, Antarctica still attracts the attentions of a select few. The Germans have documents that show they first explored Antarctica in the 1800s, not the Norwegians or British as some people think. Hitler was fascinated by both the North and South Poles. He knew there were openings into the inner Earth. He wanted to occupy and control the frozen continent and sent numerous expeditions there in the 1930s. Like the rest of Earth, Antarctica has caverns and cave systems that connect to the inner Earth. The Nazis built extensive bases within these caverns. In a place like Antarctica, they are protected from the harsh environment and prying eyes.
With the end of the World War II, the Germans were really escaping, and with their vast U-boat fleet, to places in Greenland and the Canary Islands, to South America, also going to Indonesia and Japan, and incredibly to Antarctica, where the Germans had started to create certain bases, underground, undersea U-boat bases in an area that they called New Schwabenland, and which we today call Queen Maud Land. And this is the part of Antarctica that's pretty much opposite of South Africa, really. And South Africa too, actually, was a government at the time that wanted to side with the Germans during World War II. And the Afrikaners of South Africa did. And the British actually put, many of the politicians in South Africa in prison during the entire war because they were on the side of the Germans. Then the Allies realized that there was something more going on, that parts of the Third Reich were still active, and that they were active particularly in South America and Antarctica.
So the rat lines were through Switzerland, through Marco, Spain, and through the Vatican. And that's where all the SS officers kind of went and were allowed to change their identity and then, take on other lives in other places. Obviously, there were a lot of people that came to the United States and Canada, Operation Paperclip, and then even some went to Russia. A lot were allowed to stay in Germany and actually carry on.
Even though the Allies won World War II, there were nagging suspicions that something was wrong. Under intense questioning by the Allies, it became apparent that the Germans had built a secret base in Antarctica. Rumors were spreading that the Germans had developed special weapons, which were being kept near the South Pole. Admiral Richard Byrd was assigned the task of finding out what was going on.
Some strange things happened during Operation High Jump, and allegedly craft flew out from the aircraft carriers over Antarctica, and they were involved in some kind of aerial combat with flying saucers. And the flying saucers defeated the American Navy. And they left after 3 months. Operation High Jump came to an end, and the Americans left Antarctica.
They sent this massive task force, including an aircraft carrier, tons of aircraft, a couple of destroyers, to Antarctica. They set up a base, and then basically what they did, if you look at it, is their exploration pattern was from the base, which was at one end of Antarctica, around to New Schwabenland, where the rumors are that there actually was a confrontation with Nazi flying saucers who devastated the American army. They packed the whole thing up and ran back to the United States. And later on, Admiral Byrd was quoted as saying basically that there are spacecraft or aircraft that are so fast and so maneuverable and so powerful that they are going to come at us from all different directions from the poles, and we are not going to be able to defend against them. So clearly, Byrd is talking about what he saw in Antarctica in the battle that took place there in 1946.
And Admiral Byrd then stopped in Santiago, Chile, on his way back to the United States. And he had a press conference in Santiago where he said a bunch of bizarre comments and talking about, a whole new enemy, a whole new technology, and that they were capable of flying, that these craft could fly from pole to pole, is what Byrd said. And this is where some of the stories of the Hollow Earth started to come out, and strange stories that were promoted in magazines in the 1950s of UFOs in Antarctica, holes in the poles, and that Antarctica was some very special place within the UFO scene.
They actually brought a whole army there to snuff out whatever was left over, and they got their asses kicked and they came home, and I think Admiral Byrd was very upset. I don't think maybe he thought he wasn't adequately prepared, and I think they killed him just because he was raising hell about that.
And Admiral Byrd in the South American newspapers was quoted as saying, in the next war, we'll be facing craft that can fly from pole to pole in a matter of minutes. I think they encountered the Nazi UFOs.
Between Operation High Jump, which supposedly encountered Nazi UFOs, and the crash at Roswell, which possibly could have been alien, between those two events, they seem to really fire things up and begin the creation of what we now call the national security state. The CIA was formed actually in 1947. The NSA was formed in the early 1950s. All of these events seem to be connected. The biggest event was the 1952 buzzing of Washington, D.C., and after that is when all of these agencies like DARPA came into existence, the Defense Advanced Resources Projects Agency. All of these different organizations came into being and started to work together and started to deal with this question of what were these flying saucer-like objects that were actually swarming all over the country at the time. So I think there was a definite connection between that military catastrophe in Antarctica, Kenneth Arnold's sighting, the Roswell crash, the 1952 buzzing of Washington. I think it created panic at the highest levels of government, and that's when the whole national security state came into existence.
A classified document written back in 1984 by Wayne M. McDonnell of U.S. Army Intelligence has appeared in full unredacted form on the CIA's website. During their investigation, the CIA did a so-called reverse event horizon experiment. They discovered not only the existence of the astral world, but also that our universe is holographic and constantly creates and destroys itself in a never-ending cycle, whereby one part encodes the whole, allowing them to explain the mechanism for human consciousness. Energy creates, stores, and retrieves meaning in the universe by projecting or expanding at certain frequencies in a three-dimensional mode. It creates a living pattern called a hologram. According to the study, the human mind is also a hologram, which attunes itself to the universal hologram by the medium of energy exchange, thereby achieving the state of two-dimensionality, which we call consciousness. Some say that if this construct is a hologram, then Antarctica is the lens of the projector that projects out the illusion of the construct. In other words, it is the eye of the pyramid. According to Yellow Rose for Texas, Antarctica was originally named after Arn, otherwise known as Anu, the Mesopotamian sky god. One of the supreme deities, he was known as Arn in Sumerian and Anu in Akkadian. Yellow Rose states that Anu resides in the Arctic, and Azazel is bound in Antarctica. Azazel is a leader of rebellious angels, as seen in the Book of Enoch. He leads the pre-flood civilizations of men, giants, or perhaps Nephilim, in all matters of warfare and witchcraft. Once beautiful, and now a fallen serpent or carrion bird, Azazel, according to Hebraic literature, tried to corrupt humanity. Most Jewish literature describes him as having a red appearance. A demon, with yellow eyes and wearing goat skulls.
The Book of Enoch offers a disturbing vision of the fall of the angels who lust after earthly women.
And they began to go into them, and to defile themselves with them, and they taught them charms and enchantments. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants whose height was 3,000 ells. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind.
That these angels have crossed over this boundary that they shouldn't have. They were spiritual beings, and they were to remain as such. When they decided to descend upon earth, this unleashed upon the earth all sorts of problems. Not only these giants who are bloodthirsty and violent, but also these angels went on to teach humankind a variety of forbidden crafts. They also taught human beings how to make weapons of war.
Now, the good angels, the ones not tempted by these beautiful women, go to God and say, you know, there's a lot of bloodshed caused by these bad angels. At which point God says we need to bind Azazel, the sort of lead fallen angel, to bind him and to then cast him into a pit. We might think of this as, how do we take care of nuclear waste in the 21st century? You take it out to a part of the world where no one lives, and you bury it as deep as you can. For this community, the angel was like that sort of nuclear waste. Dangerous, volatile.
After the rebel angels are cast into the depths of the earth, Enoch has a dream vision. The lead angel, Azazel, begs Enoch to plead their case before God, to petition the Almighty to release them from the depths of the earth. The request for clemency is denied.
That's pretty dramatic, Michael.
It's
biblical too, isn't it?
These are historic documents, and I think they're very important to understand, because I think they give us a glimpse into what really happened just prior to the Great Flood, the Great Catastrophe. And I think that video, it focused on these fallen angels being banished or put into these deep pits in the bowels of earth.
Can we call these fallen angels ETs?
I believe so. I think that's what they were, and I think that they were imprisoned. And the Book of Enoch actually gives an idea as to where they were imprisoned. They were imprisoned in Antarctica, because it describes how Enoch was being taken to this land in the south that burned 24 hours, burned night and day for 24 hours. That's Antarctica during the summer. It's daylight during the summer.
Exactly.
And it describes the area where the pit where the fallen angels were buried as being a range of 7 mountains. There was this really huge mountain in the middle, surrounded by 3 mountains on either side, east and west. Well, when you look at that, it describes Mount Vinson and adjacent mountains, which are part of the Antarctic ranges. Mount Vinson was named after a former U.S. secretary or state senator, and this is something that gives us an idea of the location where the fallen angels are buried. And in the Book of Enoch, it's said that they would be imprisoned there for 10,000 years. So this was just before the last flood, that they were imprisoned.
Which was about that long.
That's right. Yeah. So we're talking in that time range of 10,000 to 12,000 years.
Is this where Lucifer was also put, and Satan? Because they were fallen angels too, weren't they?
They are. This is also described in the Book of Enoch. It describes the second heaven and the fifth heaven in the book of Enoch is described as where Satan is actually banished to the fifth heaven.
They put him someplace else. Huh?
There seems to be a different location to where these fallen angels that interbred with humanity are put.
Right.
They are in Antarctica.
Are they the Nephilim?
The Nephilim are the offspring, they're the giants, they're the
Okay.
children of these fallen angels interbreeding with humanity. And so I think what we're looking at here is genetic experimentation or some manner by which extraterrestrials were able to genetically interbreed with human females.
They must have been very similar to us in order to breed, I would guess. I mean, because if you try to breed a dog and a cat, it's not going to happen. So there must have been some similarities between these so-called fallen angels and human beings.
Definitely. I think that there were some genetic characteristics that could be exploited in these hybrid programs, but one of the things that is emphasized is that the Nephilim were giants. So you would have like a normal-sized woman who would give birth to
a normal-sized fallen angel, right?
Well, whether they physically mated or whether it was some kind of genetic intervention, you know,
sure.
some sort of artificial insemination program. But these women would give birth to these giants, you know, 15, 16 foot tall, or maybe it was a more gradual process where maybe you would have the women giving birth to like giants that were maybe 8 foot tall, 9 foot tall, and then their offspring would be maybe 15 foot and so forth. So however they did it, I mean, the Nephilim were giants, and that they were all over the earth, and that during the last ice age, which corresponds with the Great Flood, the leaders, the fallen angels themselves, were imprisoned in Antarctica, and that these giants were now left to fend for themselves because now they were cut off from their leaders.
Why imprison them there?
Well, this gets into the interesting question of Antarctica being a place of extraterrestrial refugees finding a suitable location after some kind of cataclysm in other worlds. So Mars and the asteroid belt are both places that are speculated to be where there was once
another planet,
a planet between
Mars and Jupiter.
Mars and Jupiter, and that planet had a satellite, which was Mars then, and our moon, and that because of some kind of cataclysm, this super Earth was destroyed, and Mars was pushed into a new orbit, and the asteroid belt was created, and there were a lot of refugees, and they found their way to Antarctica. And actually there's a famous remote viewing experiment that was commissioned by the CIA that got Joseph McGonigal to actually remote view Mars about 1 million years ago at the time of some great cataclysm, and he described some kind of planetary arc that took the refugee Martians to a location that was very volcanic, and they had some advanced spacecraft that took them there. Now, in the book, Antarctica's Hidden History, I actually examine these documents, and I believe that the place they took them to was Antarctica, because Antarctica was at that time in a temperate region of the planet. It wasn't where it is now in the South Pole. It was probably more where Australia is now. And it was temperate, but it was also very volcanic and very rich. And this is where the Martian spacecraft crash landed. And so this became the hub of a future worldwide civilization, which people call Atlantis.
Truly amazing story.
Nazi secret societies knew all about this information. The Nazis created the Thule Society, a highly secret esoteric organization. You can even see Thule on a map of Greenland, because the Nazis were interested in Greenland, as well as Iceland and Tibet. All these places have openings to the inner earth. Hitler wanted to occupy all these countries, but he never got the chance. The Aryan race extended all the way into northern India, which has dark-skinned people. Aryan has more to do with culture and common origin than skin color. Hitler was trying to get the alien and Atlantean artifacts that existed in those locations, especially in Antarctica. In 1944 there were documented trainloads of blonde-haired, blue-eyed people from Germany, Austria, Ukraine, Poland and other occupied nations with Aryan characteristics. They were seen boarding in Bremerhaven, Germany, and shipped to Hamburg for transport to Antarctica. From Antarctica, they were shipped by U-boats and regular ships to Neuschwabenland. The Neuschwabenland base was established in Antarctica in 1938-39. Several bases were built on a section of Antarctica that was controlled by Norway. In 1938, the Germans said they were creating an underground paradise for the Führer in Antarctica. It took 6 years from 1938 to 44 to construct the underground base. They used material from South Africa, Argentina, and Chile. These countries were the easiest places from which to access Antarctica. This paradise was designed, outlined, and mapped after Berlin. The idea was to build an underground city that was the new Berlin. The area now known as Queen Maud Land was called Neuschwabenland, with an underground Nazi base known as Base 211 that still functions. Neuschwabenland became the home of the Fourth Reich. There are pictures and images that can be found showing these masses of Aryan-type people with their suitcases and backpacks, all looking alike. There were thousands and thousands of these people who were never seen again. Over 100 U-boats are also unaccounted for since the end of the war. The original Illuminati creation of the Nazis was ultimately usurped midstream by the Aldebaran influences, causing a change in alliances. The Allies kept the war criminals that the Illuminati sponsored. The rest escaped to Antarctica. The Fourth Reich in Antarctica has been a major issue for the Illuminati, since they have their own agenda and seek their own new world order. The Fourth Reich, located under Antarctica, has a network that spans North and South America, Europe, and the Middle East. Bases under and near Antarctica are both Fourth Reich and alien. There are tunnels that connect these bases to the mainland and the rest of Antarctica. In addition, all of the tunnels leading to these bases connect to the main tunnel system from ancient times. The tunnel passes directly under the Antarctic Peninsula. The main tunnel passes under the Drake Passage and under Tierra del Fuego. From there, it connects to the Andean Mountains tunnel system, which extends north to Central America and the Caribbean. The Base 211 of the Fourth Reich is located east of the Antarctic Peninsula, in a region claimed and protected by Norway. This base is huge, many levels deep, with a tropical-like environment. Located approximately 2 kilometers underground, goes as deep as 25 kilometers, with continual additional construction through the decades. Base 211 houses a tremendous fleet of real craft, as well as many tens of thousands of inhabitants, who have extensive connections to various alien groups. Our surface Earth technology is nothing compared to what they possess. The people who make up the Fourth Reich in Antarctica call themselves the Hanibu. They claim to be defending the Earth from reptilians, but want to recreate a new Lyran empire on Earth, with themselves as leaders. Hanibu has a double meaning. The Germans chose it for 2 reasons. It is a mysterious place in southern Egypt and Luxor. Also, the Japanese word hanabi means fire flower or fireworks. As you know, the Japanese were German allies. The Nordics seen in abduction scenarios are reported as tall blue-eyed blondes. The Nordics are really genetic creations of the Fourth Reich. They are the superhumans the Nazis were trying to create, perfected by the Honibu. The Honibu, along with their Nordic creations, have aligned themselves with anti-New World Order and anti-reptilian groups. This does not mean that they are benevolent, it means they want their own New World Order. The Fourth Reich has been working to usurp the plans of the established New World Order by reprogramming many of the Third Reich's progeny to thwart the plans of the Rothschild and Windsors. The Fourth Reich is a separate column within each of the countries that took in these children, who are now adults.
It's kind of ironic that John Kerry just came from Antarctica. He said supposedly because it had something to do with the environment. And I think that's just a little bit far-fetched, because after he came back, they announced that they have a 35-year ban on going to Antarctica without permission from the UN. So what are they hiding there? I did some research through WikiLeaks and found out that Julian Assange had released some documents that were back from, I believe, from the 1990s about some alien craft that were coming out of the water near Antarctica, a fleet of craft. So it seems like there's something going on there that our government doesn't want us to know. And we've started building our own facilities in Antarctica, trying to take control of the area and possibly share a base with these alien beings. For some reason now, the three major countries, China, Russia, and the United States, three major world powers, they're putting their bases underwater, their submarine bases, their military facilities. I've even heard talk about how they're putting some missile sites underneath the water.
The energy on Earth creates a very thin veil between dimensions, making contact between physical, non-physical, intraphysical, and even superphysical easy. Earth is in the most unique location in this galaxy for invasion as well as interdimensional travel. Not to mention all that can be done with inner Earth energies. This explains why on this planet there are so many ghosts, apparitions, and interdimensional events. This also explains why there is so much going on with ETs bleeping in and out of our physical world. Energetically speaking, Earth is right on the edge, in this borderline area of the galaxy. And communications. A vast array of many different species comprises this armada of beings in the Kuiper Belt. The majority of these beings are insectoid, or insect-like, especially the aggressive military factions. There appears to be a Syrian group in control, with some species in the armada coming from alternate realities and dimensions. These include Andromedans, survivors of the Nibiru explosion, and Aldebarans, all aligning with the Fourth Reich in Antarctica, with the common goal to overthrow the Illuminati. Among this group are those who originally started the humanoid experiments, which opened the door for other experimentations. Strange and unusual electromagnetic energies emanating from the South Pole and going into deep space may indicate communication between the two groups. If this is so, then the obvious intentions of the Kuiper Belt Armada are to help the Nazis overthrow the Illuminati, so that the Fourth or maybe Fifth Reich can take global control.
Now, I want to give you another clue about how there are infinite realities and infinite non-physical realities. They're all connected in this huge God mind. How does the energy balance between all of this amazing infinite structure? Well, scientists are now starting to tell you about black holes, okay? What do black holes do? They suck in energy. Okay, where does it go? What's the other end? A black hole in one reality, physical reality, is a star in another, in an alternate reality, and vice versa. So energy sucked in from one black hole in this reality is pushed out as a sun or a star in another. You understand? And that's how God-mind breathes in and out. Why do we breathe? As above, so below. Our bodies are doing what physical creation and all of creation is doing. It's breathing. Black hole, star. That's how the realities balance energy between them. Okay? That's how we balance energy between all these different layers. Understand? So, our star in this solar system is a black hole somewhere else. What do you think solar storms are and solar flares are? What causes them? What causes those chemical reactions in the star to create those pulses? Breathing out. It's breathing out. And it has an 11-year cycle. The sun, the stars breathe in a cycle, just like we breathe in and out in a cycle, so do the stars and black holes. So if you look at the totality of existence, it's true, as above, so below. What is in a microcosm is in the macrocosm. There's really no difference. Life really is very simple. This is, we make it complicated.
Slowly but surely, the Nazi factions in Antarctica began reaching agreements with Draco-reptilian extraterrestrials. Since then, the German ET alliance has consistently pressured the US government into agreements that have spanned successive presidential administrations. This Antarctic Dark Fleet has since grown into a powerful military space force, with bases in Antarctica, on the Moon, Mars, the planetoid series, as well as in the Aldebaran star system. The multinational Antarctic Treaty in 1961 was in fact a cover for the pacification of Antarctica, in order to protect the German breakaway colony from any future military attacks, similar to the failed Operation High Jump, or Operation Tamerlane. Sadly, this dark fleet is also involved in the galactic slave trade, involving millions of missing people. Many of their facilities use slave labor, in clear violation of the Antarctic Treaty. Many millions of captured humans are taken off-planet, to distant colonies on other worlds, to be bartered, abused, used in genetic experiments, or even as food. Military bases and eugenics labs in Antarctica are known to create strange, monstrous armies, human clones, hybrids, and humans with animal crossbreeds. Human pig, human Superman, flying or mermaid-type swimming humans or other manufactured monsters. The bodies of these humans that have been killed, mutilated or exploited are disposed at drop zones. National security agencies have helped to suppress this information. The solar system-wide quarantine put in place by the Sphere Alliance has cut back on the number of captive humans previously taken outside the solar system to be sold.
Things are really ramping up incredibly fast, and we are seeing an evolution of what we know. We are realizing now that reality was a sham, that the things you've been taught in school were lies. And one of the biggest things that's been hidden from us is the reality of the spirit world. And the reason why that's been hidden from us, and let me get my tinfoil hat on real nice and snug now for you. Okay. Is because there's bad aliens, bad extraterrestrials that are working with our government, and they have to use the economy of the spirit world. They need it just like you and I need money and food and water and air. They need to feed on fear, pain, sadness, terror, anguish, depression, poverty. They need that to be happening on Earth for them to survive. Just like microbes digest waste products. If, as I've said before, if your dog leaves a doggy doo on the side of the hiking trail, something's going to come along and, wow, this is delicious. It's the same principle in the spirit world, and these beings, unfortunately, if you want to look at it from a lower density perspective, in 6D or 7D, they'd say, oh, it's all sacred, it's all perfect. And ultimately, in the law of one philosophy, that's true. We are being inspired to grow by having entities in the game who invade our free will and knock us down. They're not looking out for our best interest. They are deliberately stealing from us, lying to us, betraying us, killing us. And that's happening for a purpose. It's not some random accident. To understand that this is what's been going on is to widen the scope considerably, because then we find out that these bad guys in the spirit world do not want us to know that there is a spirit world, because once we start figuring that out, their control is gone. Why is it gone? Look at things that I've showed you, like the meditation effect. 7,000 people get together and meditate, and what happens? You remember? 72% reduction in war, crime, terrorism, fatalities. What do you think happens to these negative entities who are literally feeding on us like a big oasis in the galaxy for them, apparently one of the best ones they have? What happens to them when there's a big awakening on Earth and lots more people start to feel uplifted, start to feel that there is such a thing as a universal creator, that they are divine beings, that they belong here, that your life has a purpose and a meaning, and that you matter, that you are wonderful and you are precious? What happens when we understand that? And it's not a what if anymore, but we have the proof. Well, guess what? They wither away from that. Happiness and laughter and all of these positive emotions, literally it's like you threw acid on a vampire. Ah! They don't like it at all. And they are, as silly as this must sound, they have our governments, the Illuminati governments, under the boot heel completely. The Illuminati, even at the highest levels of the pyramid, are licking the boots of these bad guys. And I've spoken to people at that level, and I can confirm, you sit down with somebody, he looks you in the eye, he tells you this stuff, and he shows you the proof, pages and pages and pages of files on his computer. He randomly clicks through and shows me stuff. I can't even tell you all of the things that he showed me. Pulls up Google Earth, starts showing me bases where extraterrestrials and humans are working together right now that he went to. Just randomly pulls stuff up on Google Earth. Oh, look over here, look over here. And we zoom in on it. It's like, whoa, what the heck is this big giant airfield doing in the middle of nowhere? What the heck is this weird little island doing in the middle of the South Pacific? And it's even made to look like a boat, one of them, from the air. And there's all this stuff there, all these weird buildings, and there's no regular civilization in these places, and yet there's something there. There's a lot of stuff like that he showed me. Pages and pages of bank accounts, all of the Illuminati family names, looking at the balances on these bank accounts, they were staggering amounts of money, billions and billions of dollars, all in what they call the secondary market. All those people, and their lower levels of their cult don't know this, but all those people don't mean hardly anything to these beings at the higher levels that are manipulating and controlling them. The so-called Anunnaki that we've spoken about before, those are the ones I'm talking about. The Anunnaki that showed up in the Sumerian cuneiform tablets that described these people coming here and taking advantage of us. That is happening, but they are only able to do what we allow them to do by invitation. Now, what did I say before? The universe operates on the principle of free will, so we can't be told that this is happening. We can't be told that most of the negative entities in our galaxy, according to my highest level insider, most of the negative beings in our entire galaxy need the Earth to survive, and if they lose this oasis, which they're going to, it's inevitable, most of them will die or they have to go positive. You can't go more than 5D in the universe without either going positive or ceasing to exist.
The deep state has gone to great lengths to rig the 2020 U.S. federal elections, so as to implement their new world order, which would have enabled Dark Fleet operations to continue out of Antarctica indefinitely. The Fourth Reich's interest in the U.S. presidency and Dark Fleet operations were all but openly revealed when President Obama's then Secretary of State, John Kerry, visited Antarctica on November 8, 2016. This was at the height of U.S. presidential elections, where a vague pretext related to the climate change issues were provided to the public. The former Apollo 11 astronaut Buzz Aldrin was also at the South Pole around November 30, 2021. He tweeted and deleted this ominous message: "We are all in danger. It is evil itself." He attached a photo of an Antarctic mountain that looks a lot like a pyramid. Aldrin, 86, was traveling as a member of a tourist group, visiting the South Pole when apparently his condition suddenly deteriorated. He was rushed to a medical quarantine facility in New Zealand. Of course, a story of medical quarantine also works well if you want to keep the press away from someone. The tweet was later dismissed as just a sarcastic remark. It has become clear, given subsequent events, that Kerry's real purpose was to brief the Fourth Reich about Trump's looming presidency, and perhaps to outline the deep state's master plan to neutralize and eventually remove Trump from power. Consequently, the Fourth Reich was a key element in the deep state orchestrated coup to remove President Donald Trump from power through a rigged election. On June 6, Elena Danone, a former French archaeologist who claims to be a contactee with the Galactic Federation of Worlds, received an email from Frank, a current resident at the U.S. McMurdo base, the largest base in Antarctica. He informed her of a sudden rise in number of people entering and leaving Antarctica through McMurdo. The personnel leaving Antarctica were German-speaking, and they were bound for South America, Argentina in particular, as a consequence of the Dark Fleet being harshly hit by the Alliance and the Federation. The German Fourth Reich presence in Antarctica is now abandoning their outpost. It appears that a major turning point has been reached. Global elites were summoned to Antarctica to meet a delegation of extraterrestrial races and Earth Alliance leaders to negotiate the terms of their surrender. If an exodus of a German Fourth Reich-controlled Dark Fleet is currently underway, then it makes sense that other parasitical elites are scurrying to fill the massive power vacuum by building bases in Antarctica.
Portals represent a popular recurring theme in science fiction, an extraordinary opening in space that connects travelers to alternate timelines and distant realms. In 2012, NASA announced that the University of Iowa physicist Jack Scudder found hard evidence of portals created by the interaction between the Earth's and Sun's magnetospheres. These portals are extremely volatile and unpredictable. opening and closing in an instant. But Scudder found markers which allowed NASA probes to locate and study them. Observations by NASA's Themis spacecraft and Europe's cluster probes suggest that these magnetic portals open and close dozens of times each day. If portal phenomena have been proven to exist scientifically in space, can we assume it's possible to find them on Earth? If so, what evidence do we have to support the existence of these hyperdimensional gateways?
So what exactly is a portal? A portal in this case would be somewhere that you could quite literally step inside and exist within what I would call a multi-dimensional environment for a short period of time, what we call a bubble universe environment, and then be thrown out of that back into your own world. Or it's possible that by entering inside it, it almost acts like what I refer to as a static elevator that's not moving through space, in other words, through distance, or it's not moving through time, but it's actually moving through realms of existence. So you walk into it, you enter into this bubble universe, and when you step out of it, you could possibly be in a parallel reality or a parallel world or back in your own world. And just maybe, there is a chance that you could end up on another planet.
This idea of cosmic shortcuts came out of Einstein's theories originally. Then around 1916, they started talking about the possibility of white holes as an adjunct to the known black holes, and that the white hole and the black hole would be connected through some form of a conduit. And we started then to think about the possibility of wormholes, these cosmic shortcuts that interpenetrate the cosmos. And the theory is that these are naturally occurring wormholes. They're microscopic, and if we were able to open one, it would require massive amounts of exotic matter to open the mouth of a wormhole so that actual matter could go through it. But the theory is there, the science is there that says that wormholes and stargates are theoretically possible, and in fact, they're probable.
Now we're starting to discover that black holes and wormholes are connected, that, you know, the black holes are like the hubs of the wormholes, if you network, and these wormholes connect distant places almost instantaneously.
Some theorists suggest that the sun is a portal. The entrance is a black hole, the exit is a sun. The energy enters through the black hole and exits through the sun, making a toroid. The influence of the toroid can be several thousands of light years, and it's all intertwined. There's a complex system based on frequencies in its interior. All the suns and all the black holes are connected from their interior, creating, with the proper knowledge of frequency mapping, a whole communication system that can take you anywhere in the galaxy and the universe. The portal of our sun, they further postulate, is an exit point of a black hole entrance connected to the Andromeda constellation. In pop culture, portals are also commonly referred to as stargates. The term stargate has been used to describe devices that allow practical, rapid travel between two distant locations.
But the problem with a portal, they're not stable. They're like rubber bands being pulled as tight as they can being let go. They snap, and then when they stop, that's where they are. So there's no rhyme or reason where they're moving around. So if you enter a portal, you know, God knows where you're going to end up at. And if you come back through to that end, if you're lucky enough to find it, it's going to be somewhere else. But now a stargate, that's different. That's basically taking a random flying black hole and you've completely immobilized it where it stays put and moves upon your command. If you have a stargate, that's the implication somebody can manipulate that technology, and they have calmed that thing down and stabilized the black hole till it's stationary, and that would be your stargates.
There is an ice wall in Antarctica. This was put in place as a physical and energetic barrier in order to quarantine us and contain a negative mind virus from escaping into other realms. This mind virus was born out of the extreme polarization of emotions in this realm. Behind the wall is a blue sun, which acts as a gateway or portal into other realms within this construct. This is the only two-way portal to and from Earth. There are many other portals all over Earth, but they're all one-way doorways that trap souls here. This portal is now in the hands of the Galactic Federation of Worlds. The Antarctic portal was used by the Dark Fleet to escape to other colonies such as Aldebaran, but even they are now cutting ties with the Antarctic group. There is a formidable amount of resources down there to be taken. It would make sense that the Fourth Reich is turning over its Dark Fleet assets in Antarctica to countries that are most sympathetic to its political agenda and activities. China, Turkey, and countries from South America and Africa would be suitable candidates. There is some speculation that the global elites will become the fallen angels of an Eden in another galaxy when they arrive through the Antarctic portal, taking with them their advanced knowledge and whatever technologies they are permitted to carry. Prior to leaving for the New World, however, they have to first help the transition of the global financial system, and to undo much of the black magic that has been cast to keep humanity and the earth itself in bondage. They will be required to hand over all the black magic keys and codes. The global elites summoned there met with a delegation of leaders from different extraterrestrial organizations, and the Earth Alliance that participated in the Jupiter Accord signed in July 2021. The elites were required to come up with a plan for a smooth economic transition to a more equitable monetary system, and prevent a global financial collapse. All these major events, as a result of the global elites surrendering and leaving through the Antarctic portal, are set to happen within 2022. While it will take a few months yet to deal with the remaining minions of the cabal, who are desperately trying to hold on to power by imposing unpopular mandatory vaccine policies, which will ultimately bring about their downfall. This timeline is corroborated by Christine Lagarde's July tweet that meetings were to be held in Antarctica in December. This is also supported by the tweets by the two senior officials from Ripple Labs, Schwartz and Garlinghouse. Their presence and expertise signaled that what was being negotiated in Antarctica involved a new online payment system, a quantum abstract rather than paper or metals. This appears to be a reference to the quantum financial system, which is linked to a quantum supercomputer that will operate through Elon Musk's Starlink and US Space Command in a highly complex and integrated global financial system. The global elites understood that the battle for Earth on their part had been lost, and they wanted no part of what was coming. Hence their willingness to cooperate in the transition to a new Earth in order to be able to use the Antarctica portal to leave forever to another planet.
By means of satellite instrumentation, astronomers in 1961 discovered what appeared to be an unusual nebula. We normally understand the nebula photon as a vast cloud-like mass of gas or dust. However, this one appeared to have anomalous properties and was named the Golden Nebula. So governments found out about this around 1961. Some say it was actually before that. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, why didn't they tell the general public? We know that there's this massive golden nebula out there. And when they found out the trajectory of Earth was headed straight towards this band of photonic energy, they decided, maybe we won't tell anyone, because this could actually awaken the whole planet. It could affect our planet. It might even change our DNA. That's quite interesting, isn't it? So what we've got is the Pleiades star system. Many of you have heard of beings called the Pleiadians. And when you look up at the night sky, some people call it the Seven Sisters, because when you look up, there are actually 8 stars, but 7 are the most visible, and they are the suns which are in this system in the Pleiadians, which are going around a central sun, which is Alcyon, the main grand central sun of the Pleiadians. And what you've got is these different stars branching out. And then we have Earth, which is going around our sun, but our solar system is going round and around the great central sun, which is Alcyon. So we're going orbiting a massive sun from the Pleiades. Now, this cycle takes roughly between 24,000 to 26,000 years. So approximately, some people say 11,000, but approximately 12,000 years we go through this photonic belt, which is stuck right in the middle. Well, let's carry on with a little bit more history, because there's various astrologers and scientists and engineers who started seeing this. Friedrich Wilhelm Bessel, born in 1784, was a German astronomer, mathematician, physicist, and geodesist. He discovered that the stars in the Pleiades had a proper motion of 5.5 seconds of arc per century. And then José Comas Soler, a Spanish astronomer of Catalan origin, born 1868, further postulated that the Pleiades and a number of other stars formed a distinct system that all apparently had their own planetary systems upon which our solar system played a part in. Then Paul Otto Hesse was a German esotericist and an engineer. He also studied this system and discovered at absolute right angles to the movement of the stars a photon belt or monastic ring with a thickness of approximately 2,000 light years existed. Up to this time, scientists have been unable to recreate this phenomenon in a laboratory, but Paul Otto Hesse described his beliefs about this belt and its impact in his 1949 book, The Recent Day. But here's the next really interesting part. So the very first time we heard about the 3 days of darkness was from Nostradamus. But when some of these scientists started looking at the photonic belt, they thought, well, when Earth is coming here like this and it starts to touch into it, how is that going to affect our electromagnetosphere and the ionosphere, which is measured by the Schumann resonance? Are we going to have some kind of 3 days of darkness? And that is where the 3 days of darkness really started coming from, which people are still talking about even now. Let's have a look. The concept was further progressed in 1977 when Samuel Anwoa, his lecture, The Rings of Alcyon, at the Conference of Alcyon, in which he mentions Hesse, who predicts that if the Earth enters the belt first, a great fire in the skies or pyrotechnic lights would appear. But if the sun enters first, the radiation could release what could interfere with the solar rays and darkness might reign for 110 hours, after which everything would return to normal. So quite interesting about the Mayan calendar, the long count calendars, that also coincides with the 14 to 16,000 cycle which it takes to hit this photonic belt every time we go round. So the Mayans knew about this, and that's why they predicted that in 2012, when we went into the photonic belt, that there would be the end of a world. Well, there is an end of a world, and now we're going into the new world. So the Mayans knew about it, but even more interestingly, all these ancients predicted it. So we had the Native Americans, the Red Indians, they were talking about it as well. And if you look in some of their scriptures, they were saying when the earth passed through this wave, great changes would occur. This great transformation would be preceded by a time of purification. Now, when you hear these channel messages like there's more light on Earth than there's ever been and Gaia is full of light, that is an actual scientific fact, because there is more plasmic and gamma ray and photonic energy ever been on Earth than ever before, and cosmic radiation. So it's not just new age stuff, it is actual scientific fact. There is more photons here than ever before as we are going through this 2,000 year plasmic ring which goes around the sun of Alcyon. So it takes 2,000 years to go all the way through.
Crossing this interstellar cloud will accelerate consciousness from a materialistic third density existence to a fifth density existence. According to the law of one material, fifth density is perhaps best described as extremely white in vibration. Therefore, the photon belt is not an inaccurate description of this fifth density region. If humanity's collective consciousness was not sufficiently developed to accommodate fifth density frequencies, it would implode in a self-induced global calamity. If humanity's consciousness evolved, however, a golden age of wisdom, love, and peace would begin. This manifests as a change in consciousness, as the perceptions, mental and physical, shift into a higher range. Physical symptoms can occur. Those who have prepared their mind openly follow the wave. But those who are not ready will resist it. It translates for them as physical and mental suffering. The vision changes. The perceptions change. Especially the perception of linear time, which is perceived as faster. Also known as the quickening. Those that are not prepared will experience more stress and turmoil in their personal and collective lives. Those individuals sufficiently prepared emotionally and mentally will be able to surf the coming galactic waves and manifest a new Earth. The proverbial kingdom of heaven on Earth. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.